What's up, everybody? Welcome to another jam-packed edition of the $2 Sports Podcast. I am your co-host, Rusty Buckets, coming to you from Martin, Tennessee, home of the Skyhawks, my new residence. For the time being, I am up in Tennessee, Drew, back where there's no state income tax, where I wasn't ready for it to be that cold because, you know, I'm a beach bum for the last 6 years. It's definitely a little bit chillier here than it was in Myrtle Beach, but I'm grateful to be back in the Mid-South where I am from, where I belong. Welcome to the podcast, my esteemed colleague, Drew Gann. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Buckets. Welcome back to God's time zone.
That's the best part.
Yeah, I got to tell everybody, Monday night, I was getting ready to sit down and watch football, and the first thing that pops in my head was, I wonder if Rusty remembers he's in God's time zone. So I called him, and I was like, hey, man, you just got to remember, in case you've forgotten, the game comes on in like 10 minutes, okay? I called him at 7 o'clock. The game comes on at 10 minutes. I don't know if you're used to it or not, but it doesn't come on at 8:15. It comes on at 7:15. And since you're an old man and you're back in Central Time Zone, now at least you can watch most of the third quarter before old man goes to bed.
You'll be proud of me. I've been staying up a lot later lately for other reasons, on the phone, hanging out, a lot of other reasons to keep me up, and I've been seeing the end of these.
Running up the phone bills.
That's it. I've been seeing the end of these Grizzly games. I've been seeing the end of Monday Night Football. And so that's been one byproduct that's been pretty nice these late nights is I've seen, unfortunately, the unfortunate end of most Grizz games. But I did see that Titan comeback on Monday. And let's go tighten up, baby. What a freaking game.
We should probably talk about that a little bit today. We have not talked about the Titans at all this season.
On purpose.
For good reason.
I've been suppressing that far away.
But bring that back up later on in the podcast, and we'll talk about it briefly. First thing, we're hitting kind of an off season, a kind of a lull here, and so let's just get back and hammer on our Bucks best and beef for the week. Rusty, you've had as busy of a week as anybody could possibly have had.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's been plenty of beefs, but start with one of your best, with your Bucks best of the week.
One of my Bucks best goes out to my kid brother Clark, friend of the podcast. Clark flew out on Thursday of last week. He coached. He had school all day, had practice, drove to Huntsville, Alabama, hopped on a plane, and landed in Myrtle Beach at about 12:40 local time. We then stayed up until like 2 a.m. Thursday night, just chatting, talking, hanging out. Spent all day together Friday. Went to the Marsh Walk, Drew, one of our favorite haunts, not Dead Dog, where we had a grand old time that night when the waitress kept coming by like, y'all need another drink?
Yeah,
and never once asked if we were hungry. But
I've heard we had a good night.
Yeah, we did. Ended up with cookout and a peanut butter milkshake in my fridge. But if you want to know more about that, that's going to be in the Patreon. Went to the Marsh Walk, had dinner at the Claw House. So we got Spider-Man checking in. If you're watching on YouTube, we have got the one and only. Whoa, what's up, BB? What's up? Oh, it's Snaggletooth, man. We got some missing teeth over there.
We'll get to that.
Boy. But yeah, finishing up my best of the week. You know, shout out Clark. He came with me. We had a cross-country road trip. He drove my truck back from South Carolina. I drove the U-Haul back. Not the most fun 11 hours I've spent, but really grateful for the time with my brother. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, a lot of catching up, and then just good time on the road, man. So shout out to Clark. Probably my best of the week was just that good time with him. So
yeah, you know, as you age and you get older and you know, your siblings who you grow up and you're inseparable. I mean, a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're just forced to live in the same house and lots of times share rooms and everything. You're just forced to be together for the first 18 years of your life. But then
even when you don't like each other, because there were stretches where Clark and I didn't care for each other.
Right. And you and Clark are so close in age for brothers. Like, what are you, like 13, 14 months apart?
We're 15 months apart, almost Irish twins, and we fought like cats and dogs, man. And we're both hyper competitive, so that didn't make it better.
Right. Yeah. And so for like the first 18 years of your life, you're forced to be with your brother. Like, I've got two little sisters. I never had a brother biologically. Kirk and David were basically brothers for me, but it's kind of weird as you grow because you talk less, especially for you and Clark, you know, since you moved off to South Carolina and at one point in Memphis, and then there's kids now and there's distance, and you just don't get, you may see them, but you don't get that time with them. You know, it's always, Christmas time is great for that. It's one of the best parts of Christmas is that you get together oftentimes in the house you grew up in with the people who grew up there, and your kids are running and playing and whatnot, and you get time with your siblings and your parents just as adults, and you
Yeah.
can reminisce and talk
And it's hindsight's always 2020 there, because like for those of you who are listeners, our faithful listeners who might be only children, like imagine having a friend that you're forced to be friends with that you don't like anything about for 18 years.
Right.
And then you get out of the house and you go your separate ways. Clark's had 3 kids. He's had a lot of life happen to him, much like myself, with the divorce and everything that I've been through over the last few years. And it started with memes, right? There's nothing that unites people quite like internet memes. Me and Clark and Jim have a little meme chat that goes through, and like we send memes all day, every day. And then Clark and I have gotten closer through that. Now we text and talk, and we probably talk on the phone every couple of days. And so really grateful for, like you said, like kind of overcoming some of those childhood differences and gaining a good friend out of it. And he and I are much, much closer today. Obviously, no secret that, I think you and I are probably even a little bit closer because we do talk every single day. But Clark and I are really close. I'm grateful for that relationship and grateful for him coming to help me move, for sure.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing, is like you grow up hating these people. I know me and my little sister, Victoria, who's 2 years younger than me, just fought like cats and dogs. Like we could not have been more opposite. She was super high strung teenage cheerleader. I mean, just by stereotype, and I was laid back, and she would drive me crazy. Like if I was watching TV, she would go places that I wouldn't go. And what I mean by that is, like, she would say, I want to watch this. And I would say, no, I'm watching this. Get over it. And then she would say, I hate you. And I would be like, well, I'm not going to go that far. So here, just take it. And so, but then you grow up, and as adults, you get to be friends again. There's not that competition a lot of times anyways.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the greatest parts of being close to family, and especially during the holiday season when you get to just come and without expectations and anything like that, you just get to come hang out with your family.
And you get to look back on those memories of Clark and I. we would race to see who could get the first bite after the blessing. And we would try and do all these things to be the first. And like now as adults, we look back and like, it's kind of dumb. We can laugh about it.
Right. So,
all right, hit me with your best, man.
My best of the week. So, I got every year at Temple Electric, I got a little bit of a Christmas bonus. And times are hard, like most of Americans, the middle class is getting really squeezed. I saw a meme the other day. You remember in Home Alone when Kevin he puts together a shopping list, okay? And the total was like $20, I think, and $20-something, call it $22. They put there that shopping list and said in 2022 at Christmas time that would have cost $44. In 2023, 1 year later, it was costing $77.
Good Lord.
So I'm just like, for us and lots of people, I mean, we'll just be honest, like when Christmas time comes around, a Christmas bonus a lot of times is how you pay for Christmas and how you pay off, if you shop ahead, you credit cards or whatever, like it's how you pay for Christmas. And so my wife told me, she said, listen, this is your Christmas bonus. And I love her for this. She thinks she wants me to buy things for myself more than I want to, because I want to do practical stuff, She said, just buy you one thing. I said, well, I've got to have some work boots. These are falling apart. They're hurting. And so I was like, I've got to have some work boots. So that's the one thing I'll buy myself. We've also got to get new tires for the vehicle. So I'll get new tires. I'll buy me some work boots. And then the rest will go to whatever fund needs replenished. And so there's a cobbler in town, a shoe shine place. I mean, a shoe repair place is the only place in North Mississippi, I believe, that does shoe repairs at all. And my mom loves it because she's got all kinds of boots. So it seems like once a month, once every couple months, she hands me a pair of boots she wants resold and whatnot. So I take them into the cobbler, and he has some assorted boots, not really a good selection. But I said, listen, I got small feet. I mean, you've seen me in person. It's not a shock. I said, I have a hard time even finding boots to try on. I said, what do you got? And he holds up a pair of boots, my size, and he says, try these on. And I tried them on. I'm like, these fit good. These comfortable. I said, what's the story on them? He's like, well, they're slightly used. Somebody brought them in to have me shine them up and never picked them up. So how much you want for them? He said, well, they're marked for $45, but you give me $30. And I was like, absolutely. So I got some The brand is Georgia boots.
Dude, I love Georgia boots. I got a pair in my bedroom. Ariat, Georgia, all I wear. That's awesome.
So I got a pair of Georgia boots, leather, waterproof, slightly used.
Let's go.
For $30, and
it's
I'm like,
Christmas miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle. I saved. I mean, you've shot for boots. I've saved like $200 on that
easy.
trip.
Georgia boots are 150, 180 bucks, man. Easy.
And so, that's what I'm stoked about. So,
let's go, man. What a great, man. Because like you said, everything's more expensive, and to be able to save $200 on a pair of boots, that ain't bad.
Well, let me tell you how I lost some of that money.
Uh-oh.
My Bucks beef.
Uh-oh.
Is I have I have 3 children. 2 are older, one of which has lost all of her teeth, and the other one has not lost any teeth until Tuesday night. He comes in and he has pulled his first tooth. He's been wiggling for a week. He just got to playing with it, fell right out. I was like, oh, congratulations. Maybe the tooth fairy will come see you. And tooth fairy came and saw him, and for the first tooth, Thomas Jefferson was bestowed, but we were
where's this going?
I'm trying. They're in the other room, so and so if you don't know which form of currency Thomas Jefferson's on, it wasn't a nickel, it was the other.
You need to read a book.
Rusty, you can tell them because they can't hear you. And so I was like, Tooth Fairy typically only spends that much on the first tooth, After that, you may get a couple Georges and we're good. Well, he called my bluff because the next day at school he lost a second tooth, and me not having any foresight or planning ahead, about 10 o'clock last night, I was like, okay, I wonder if the tooth fairies come, and he did, but there were no Georges around the house.
Uh-oh.
So he got another Thomas Jefferson.
My boy's $4 richer.
So all that money I saved, I lost 10 of it over the week.
To a good cause.
To a good cause. Yeah.
To a good cause.
Yeah. I really need a birthday because Chloe had a birthday a couple weeks ago and she came home with $160.
Holy smokes, man. Yeah. A funny quick story. My brother and I were obsessed, like most kids and a lot of adults, were obsessed with wrestling. Not wrestling, but wrestling. Like WWF, WWE, wrestling. WCW, wrestling.
EPW and boom.
Yeah, that's it. I was the American Legion there in Corinth. I went and watched one of Mary's boyfriends in high school wrestle there with a bunch of that midget wrestling. I don't know if I can say that in 2023.
Little people wrestling. I have a say.
All right, so midget wrestling came on first. That was the most interesting thing I've ever watched in my life. And then they had like full size, like they had like the fun size and the
little leagues and the big leagues.
They had like the mini candy bars and the big ones. Yeah. Anyway, we're derailing. So,
oh man, this may be the last episode of the 2 Bucks Sports Podcast. We made it 63.
Go get canceled. But we would go watch that one. Anyway, Clark and I we're getting ready to go to Atlanta for his birthday in 1995. I'm going to watch the Braves play in a series against the Reds. We stopped by Talladega, Six Flags, big family trip. Anyway, the night before we left, we're wrestling on the bed. And Clark was obsessed with Shawn Michaels and wound up the Sweet Chin music about
HBK.
About the time I went off the ropes. And he caught me square in the mouth and knocked out 2 baby teeth. And I was bleeding like a stuck pig, man. But it was just like one of those panic moments that he kicked me. And like there was a second of just like, And then I just see just like red going everywhere. And I'm like,
So two rebuttals to that, 2 follow-ups. The only tooth that our oldest Chloe has lost since we've had them going on 3 years now was knocked out by Braxton's fist. So he didn't sleep comfortably that night. 2, about little person wrestling. So you went to Mississippi State. I went to Mississippi State. A staple once a year at Rick's American Sports Bar and Grill.
That's it.
They have midget wrestling.
I remember those, man.
I was in Starkville for 2 falls. The first fall, I was like, no way I'm going. Nope, I'm too short. They're going to get me mixed up.
They're going to put you in a leotard and put you out there.
I told them, I said, I'm not going because of midget wrestling. I'm the big show. So I can't go.
You're the final boss they have to defeat to get the title.
I'm the Big Show of midget wrestling. And so no, I'm not going. And the second year they taught me into going. And so, and I'm gonna tell you, for as far as events go, that's at Rick's, Mustache the Band, number one, always. Number two, midget wrestling. It is electric, and I'm telling you, it feels wrong. I mean, let's be real. But the people that participate in it and the traveling show that puts it on, they know what they're doing. That's what I have to keep telling myself. It's like they know that they're being put up for entertainment for a lot of the wrong reasons.
Right.
And it's not a shock to them. So that's why. No. But it's like, it feels like
it's like you can't laugh
at Hunger Games kind of thing. Yeah. It's like a real messed up, Roman Coliseum situation where everybody's just yelling at these little people and just wanting them to just kick each other in the nuts repeatedly.
If we hadn't been canceled yet, we finna be. Two of my favorite movies are like, they're movies you shouldn't laugh at because they're hyper offensive, but I find them absolutely hilarious. Tropic Thunder is one of my favorite movies of all time. I laugh at that hysterically every time I watch it.
I'm a dude playing a dude. Guys,
another dude. Dude, that is the most quotable movie. Like, I quote that movie daily. Like, so if that offends you, this is probably not the podcast for you. Number two, the other one is The Ringer with Johnny Knoxville. Have you seen that one? There are two movies that I shouldn't laugh at, but
Scratch my CD.
Broad daylight. My favorite is Oh My Atlanta. Anyway, midget wrestling is like that. My name's Jimmy and I can count to a potato. All right, enough. So
we're just quoting movies, people.
There's two movies I shouldn't laugh at, and that's like midget wrestling. Like, you shouldn't be entertained by it because it's 2023. It's probably like offensive. But I remember vividly in 2004, it's me, Mary, Clark, Jim, and Case Ingram. Shout out Case Ingram, the biggest one Lions, winning the state football championship. Let's freaking go, baby. First in school history. Couldn't happen to a better dude. Case, you getting a shout out.
Great dude.
Great dude. Does it the right way. Winning program. I love me some Case Ingram. He was in my first wedding. Great guy. Love me some Case Ingram. Anyway, I digress. We're there watching wrestling. Everybody starts cheering. And I'm like, what are we cheering for? Like, I don't know what's happening. And they were running in front of me. And I couldn't see them because of the guardrail that was in front of me. Everybody's like, woo! And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And I lean over to Mary. I'm like, what are we cheering for? And she points. And I'm like, oh.
They've run out.
My bad. Yeah. My bad. Yeah. When you're 6'5", it's below eye level.
Well, let me tell you, like, as somebody who's 5'5", you don't want to be the guy in midget wrestling that is trying to fight their way to the railings in order to be able to see. It's like, because then that's when they identify you as the Big Show.
The Big Show.
Yeah.
That's Andre the Giant.
Yeah. And let me tell you, those things get a little R-rated if you went to the same one I went to. They asked for volunteers to get some lap dances by some little people. And
it gets sketchy. Thankfully, they're at the VFW in Corinth, Mississippi. They kept it fairly wholesome, but not at Rick's, man. Between Rick's, Dave's Dark Horse, and Remington Hunt Clubs, I've seen things.
Speaking of Case Ingram, his wife, Brady, and I are the same age, and she lived like not even a stone's throw from the VFW.
Yeah.
And so we would hang out at her house and walk over to the VFW all the time. They wouldn't let us in.
No, but you try.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're off the rails here. We're early. My Bucks beef of the week. Man, there's so many. I have spent so much money.
Of moving is the beef itself. There's subsequent beefs in that, but moving is the worst.
Like,
man.
It starts with dropping $900 in a U-Haul, and then it continues with almost $600 in gas, and then it's like, and then it's more money to come up here. I'm buying food for people that are helping me.
And not to mention you're in between jobs. Like,
oh my God!
All this.
I got my paycheck today, and it's a fraction of a paycheck. So, like, I've got savings. Shout out to past Rusty for saving money. But, like, I saw that check hit, and I was like, ooh, that's less than what it normally is.
Yeah. And so you've got to bridge that gap while also having your biggest expense in probably the last 5 years.
That's it.
Because moving is more expensive than anything.
It is. And I bought plane tickets for Mom and Clark to come see me. I bought plane tickets for me to go see Sarah. Like, just a lot of expenses has happened. And then I got that check today, and I was like, Reggie. But like I know that there's like PTO coming, like I've got stuff coming, but like that hit today. Today wasn't a great day anyway. I'm grateful for the podcast tonight, but when that hit today, it was just like kind of like a comedy of errors, and I was like, you know what? Like this is stupid. Like
this is the most. You're talking about being in between jobs, moving, and all the financial struggle that's that, and it's totally reasonable. I've been through it. We all know what it's like.
Yeah.
This is like, I feel like I'm in a windfall right now. Like I got my Christmas bonus last week, and
if I could mute your mic, I would.
Well, no, but I'm making a point here. So this is like the biggest struggle because I'm not a great budgeter. So we've aired out lots of dirty laundry on here. Me and my wife, first of the month, man, we feel rich, and this is a big problem, and it's something that we have we have decided we're going to address.
Sure.
She gets paid once a month, last day of the month, last working day of the month. Well, you know what that is? In December, it's like
next week.
The 14th.
Yeah.
And so I looked at my bank account this morning. I'm like, oh, baby. And she's like, no, that's got to last us through January. I was like, oh, this is a curse, man. Yeah. I got to put that in the savings right now. Like,
Clark and I were talking about that last week. You know, my kid brother is a teacher and a coach, and same thing. He was like, I got paid today for the last time until January 31st. And I'm like, you know, my problems suddenly seem less.
Yeah. And so, like, middle of December, Christmas is coming up. Everybody knows. The 2nd is my oldest daughter's birthday. The 4th is our anniversary. The 17th is my wife's birthday. And 25th is Jesus's birthday. And all of which are expensive. And so for that paycheck to hit on the 14th, and I'm just like, here we go, baby. And I've got to tell myself, like, no, if you spend that money, January will be awful.
Yeah.
You will eat ramen starting December the 27th.
And hot dogs. That's what got me through college, man. Ramen, hot dog, and peanut butter. I'm going to quote The Office for the second time tonight, and I'm going to say, because of that, happy birthday, Jesus. Sorry your party's so lame.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Anyway, we're
going to Office Christmas episodes. If you want a place to start The Office, just go watch the Christmas episodes. No funnier episode. No, the best Christmas episode. You tell me what your favorite one is. Rocking Christmas.
It's great. It's great. But I love, like, maybe not a Christmas episode, but the Stanley quote where he's like, I've had a Moroccan Christmas. I've had a blues Christmas. I've had a black Christmas. I've had a throwback Christmas. I just want Christmas, 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 Christmas. I don't want a black Santa. I want a white Santa, a baby Jesus in the manger, Christmas. That's my favorite Office Christmas.
Moroccan Christmas is great. And the Christmas the episode, I can't remember the title of it. But the episode you just referenced when Michael plays Santa. And then Michael and Phyllis are both Santa. And Michael turns into Jesus.
And he's got the karaoke machine. And he's like calling people out. That's where he buys the iPod for a ride.
No, that was the first Christmas.
Oh, that's the first Christmas. That's right. But he's like calling out people because he's upset that Phyllis is Santa. And that's where Kevin sits in his lap and he's like, oh, God.
That one. I'm going to get you 1,000 balloons.
He's like, just hurry up, man. And Kevin's like, I've never made it this far before.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to tell everybody right now, we've made it, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes into the podcast, and we're talking about life and everything, and y'all just buckle up. It's that time of year. We're in between, like, SEC, like, conference championship game and bowl season here. And so just bear with us. We're having a good time right now. And
listen, this is great for all of our our female listeners, our non-sports fans, because I get texts, I get messages from some of my female friends and like Sarah, like these people listen to the podcast that don't know anything about sports, and they appreciate our banter before we get into sports because they'll listen to 20 minutes or so of the podcast. My mom
tells me every week, I listen to the first 15 minutes of the podcast.
Yeah, I get that all the time. One of my former coworkers, Katie, shout out Katie Abshire, I'm sure she's listening. She listens to the first little bit and then she'll text me.
Right now.
And she's like, this is hilarious. This is so, maybe not. She's like, this is so great. It's really funny. And then she's like, and then I turn it off when y'all talk about sports.
So
maybe
we're a podcast for the people.
That's it. Maybe we should
we need to start soliciting topics again.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. You know what?
It's a good idea what you just said about 2 podcasts. You know, if I could, if I could convince my mom, hey, you remember that hour and a half you have to watch all 3 kids, almost 4. I want to do it twice. But one of my favorite podcasts, it's a fantasy football podcast, and I listen to them because I love the banter and everything. They also started a podcast where they just do weird stuff and talk about anything other than sports. And I
I
was
think
like,
you and I would kill a podcast like that, like humble brag moment kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like with our banter on the phone, as much as we make each other laugh and people around us, like I think we would do well with it. But
Yeah.
I think one podcast is enough for people to have to listen to our annoying voices, see our ugly mugs, and hear our stupid opinions.
And do it for free.
Yeah, for free.
Hey, give me
none
a
of y'all paying
sponsor.
us. That's
I'll
it.
tell you what. If you paid me in gift cards for local boutiques, I could make it happen.
That's it. You can treat Haley to some nice stuff and to give us
Speaking
another
of,
night.
You're talking about how spoiled my wife is. We had our company Christmas party Tuesday night. Got the babysitter for the kids. They do raffles, different vendors that we buy transformers and power line cable and all
I thought you were talking about Optimus Prime.
No, they send gifts for us to raffle off, as a thank you to the company, for purchasing so much from them through the year. And the last 3 years, I've been there 3 years. I've been to 3 Christmas parties. I've won a raffle drawing every year. First year, I won a 22-inch Blackstone griddle. Amazing. Still use it to this day. The second year, I won a $50 gift card to a local boutique named Ravishing Ruby. My name gets called again this year. I go up there and draw my prize out of the bucket, open it up. It's a $50 gift card to another local boutique.
Haley's racking
boutique. And I just looked at her, and both years I said, "Happy birthday, honey." I just handed it on over.
There was I used to be a part of this club called Sertoma in Myrtle Beach, like Kiwanis Rotary Club, stands for Service to Man. And every year in March we would do, and I'm going to miss this. It was called the Charity Ball. And it was an excuse to dress up, black tie, have some drinks, have some dinner, have a band come in. It was always a great time when we got to go when I went. The first ever year that I went, they give away cash prizes up to $10,000.
Whoa.
Up to $10,000. Your boy's name gets called. Not for a cash prize.
Oh, no.
I'm not, this is going to sound like a first world problem, but, I won a $1,500 prize.
Oh.
But it was a custom tailored suit.
Did you use it?
Drew, yeah. Drew, listen, you know me. I am the redneckest. I'm wearing a t-shirt, shorts, backwards hat. This is me every single day. I don't.
You might think that you're redneck, but Rusty's rednecker than you.
That's it. Rednecker than you. Somebody should write a song about that. Yeah. I'm a casual dude. Carhartts and a t-shirt is 99% of what I wear.
When I go to church on Easter Sunday, I put on a button up with no tie. Still got my boots on.
Yeah. I own a tux, but it's because it was bought for me when I was going on cruises in a previous life. I don't wear it in a 365-day year, 366 next year in our leap year. I might wear a suit 3 times. Right?
Yeah, I bought a suit one time, and it was for college when I was interviewing for jobs.
I bought 2 suits off the rack at Belk.
I only wear it to funerals now.
That's it. I have a blue and a black suit, and then I have this gem. So this is a cool story. So I win this suit. There's a guy named Jonathan Nichols. He's from Jonathan Taylor. He's from Nichols, South Carolina. Calls me up one day. He's like, "I heard you won a prize. This is awesome. When can I come measure you?" And I'm like, "All right, come on Tuesday." So he comes to the clinic. We go to the break room. He measures me up, gets all my measurements, all this kind of stuff, right? He's like, "You look like a fashion-forward kind of dude." I'm like, "You don't know me, sir."
No, man.
You don't know me, sir.
You can tell this from how I'm dressed now.
I am wearing slacks and a polo, probably a Mississippi State polo. I'm just not fancy at all. And I'm like, "You don't know me, sir, but all right, let's go with it." So he shows me this really
cool.
That
Mississippi State polo makes me think that you want extra room in the back pockets for your can of snuff.
That's it. So he measures me up and he said, let's do something fashion forward. I'm like, all right. So he whips out this pattern, and it's gray.
He's got one of those, what's it called? The neck wraps, that Charles Woodson wears. We need to put stuff, yeah.
Like the little shawl. No, but he had his tape measure around his neck at this point. He's like, "I'm gonna show you a pattern. I think you'll love it." He showed me that it's a gray suit. It's got blue and yellow checkers. It does look nice, and I'm like, "Cool, sounds good. I'm in." He goes, "But I have a proposition."
Uh-oh.
He said, "What about the lining of the suit?" I'm like, "Is there a lining?" I don't know.
Can you put the Grizzlies logo on it?
He said, "I think we should do Van Gogh's Starry Nights as the lining to this suit." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm in."
Okay.
I'm in. He shows me a picture. So he makes suits for Harold Baines, or Harold Raines, the Baseball Tonight, former Yankee, Cleveland Indian.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He makes suits for him. He's made suits for Dion. This is a big time guy. And he made a suit for Rusty Whitten. I think that's my favorite part. Not only do I pop it open, and I'll get to the story's not over. This is the pause. Pop it open. You see Van Gogh's Starry Nights, but it says on the lapel, made for Rusty Whitten. And I'm like, I am cool. Fancy. So he measures me up and
that's leaves. The reason, that is your only reason you need to never gain any weight.
100%.
Yeah.
Because this suit, so he leaves. Like 4 weeks later, I get a phone call. Hey, Rusty, it's Jonathan. Your suit's ready. I'm like, dude, I forgot about that. Heck yeah. He's like, we'll come by the clinic. When can I come by? So he comes by a couple days later. He brings it in. This thing is sexy, man. It's like gray. It's got all the stripe. It's got the Starry Nights on the inside. I'm like, I have made it. He's like, go try it on for me. Drew, we just talked about how expensive life is. I'm a physical therapist. I may be a doctor, but I don't make doctor.
You're not the good kind. Yeah.
No, I'm just like, I'm a doctor of mathematics. Like I don't make a ton of money, right? I'm
like
a DPT.
You are on the same pay scale for doctors as like a professor.
100%. Like I make good money. I'm not sitting here, bemoaning the fact that I make good money, but it ain't doctor.
Right.
I may live to be 110, and I'll never own another custom suit. Yeah. But that one custom suit I have is one of my prized possessions. I put that thing on, dude. Nothing has ever fit me better. Like it was made for me, and it fit like nobody's business. I walked out of that bathroom. I felt like I was Ric Flair. I'm that limousine riding. I'm that gator skin wearing. I mean, I felt like $1 million walking out of that bathroom wearing that suit. And I'm like, this is like, I have peaked. I will never feel better enclosed than this right here. And so, like you said, I'm not gaining any weight because I want that suit to last. Like nothing makes me feel better. That's the suit. I've sent you pictures of it. One of my other prized possessions is I own 2 pocket squares. One is black, and the other one has John Morant's face on it. And I wear my John Morant. Shout out to Drew for getting that for me. I wear my John Morant pocket square with that suit because it just works. It fits with the color scheme. So I love that suit, man. But yeah, so of all the prizes for me to win that night, every single one of them, that's the best part, was a cash prize, except the $1,500 prize, which was a custom suit, and your boy won it. And so I wear a suit 3 times a year, and it's that one.
If you ever get married again, we will have to have suits that match that one suit.
Yes, because I'm getting married in that suit, and when they say instead of like you may kiss your bride, I'm gonna turn it. I'm gonna show off the Van Gogh Starry Nights.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, yeah, some guy that was like didn't have any ears painted this picture. I think his name was Van Gogh or something.
I'm gonna butcher his name too.
Yeah. But I'm not the shape to ever be able to wear anything off the rack. You know what I'm saying? I have been in many of weddings. I've been best man in a wedding. I've been in several weddings. None of the suits ever looked good on me except for one, and it just happened to be my wedding. And it was perfect. And if I ever bought a suit, I would go back and order the same suit and the same size and just be like, all right, now let me just buy the whole thing from you.
That's a conversation for Patreon, but I'm still upset about the fact that I couldn't go to your wedding. But anyway. We fell victim to COVID in our wedding. We got married in December of 20, and I have lots of out-of-town friends, and very few of them came except for our good friend Lauren and Stacy. Who did come and bring the party. I fell victim to a very liberal ex-wife. But anyway, we're going to move right along into the podcast. We've talked about a lot of things.
We need to talk about sports now. We're getting too much into real life now.
We got several layers into that. So, Drew, yesterday was a big day for SEC football. We're going to dive right into some sports. So, yesterday the SEC released their 2024 football schedules. And I think if we called up fans at the University of Florida, their Bucks beef of the week would be their schedule. 11 out of the 12 teams that they have scheduled to play next year are in bowl games, including 3 teams in the top 10. Like they've got a murderer's row of football games next year. And I've been, belaboring the fact that Mississippi State has a tough schedule next year, and we do. But after that Florida schedule, I'm going to be real quiet for a few weeks.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find it here.
I got it right here. So they start with Miami at home, Samford at home, A&M at home. Then they travel to Starkville to play those Mississippi State Bulldogs, the one team that's not in a bowl game this year. UCF comes to Florida after that. They play at Tennessee, home for Kentucky, Georgia on a neutral field, at Texas, home for LSU, home for Ole Miss, and they finish at Florida State. That is an absolutely brutal schedule for next year.
You know, I spoiled or helped spoil the Ole Miss schedule last week, and one of my main contentions was the fact that Ole Miss did not have an easy opponent going into the Egg Bowl, the week before the Egg Bowl. Like this year, we had Louisiana Monroe. Last year, we went to Fayetteville to play Arkansas, and it was ugly. And it's just not much time to get ready. Ole Miss had the opportunity to have 2 weeks to prepare for Mississippi State.
Right.
And in that emotionally charged Egg Bowl. This year was great. And next year, they go on the road and play Florida. But then I looked at Florida's schedule and saw that their last 5 games was Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. And I was like, listen,
Wolf.
if there's an opportunity. So you start the season with Miami, Samford, that's a W, A&M, Mississippi State, UCF. At that point, if they're not like 4-1, then there's a good chance that Billy Napier is getting fired after that Georgia week.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so at that point, if you're Ole Miss, you're kind of hoping for a derailment of Florida, and you think Florida may be in the dumpster by the time you play them. So that's the positive.
Right.
Spin that one more time. If Florida has fired Billy Napier by the time Ole Miss comes to town, the storylines, man, because that is a job
for Lane Kiffin.
That is a job that makes me nervous.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, I wasn't. He was going to take the Auburn job. I was not nervous about Auburn, and I should have been. Miami, I was not nervous about Miami, and he did not take that job.
Yeah.
I will be nervous about Florida when it comes
as
to
you
Lane.
should be, because that'll be
a
ipso facto job interview.
Yeah, as an Ole Miss fan, I'm really hoping that Florida starts this season off. They've still got a really good recruiting class for high school kids.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping. That's probably the only reason why he kept his job this year, if I'm being honest with you.
Because they haven't done much in the transfer portal, but they are winning from a high school standpoint.
Right. So I'm really hoping that for Florida, they're starting off with a home win against Miami, Samford, a home win against A&M. You beat a Mississippi State team that's trying to rebuild. You beat UCF at home in the in-state kind of game. And then you always beat Tennessee for some reason. You start off hot to give people enough leeway, to have enough slack in the leash to not fire him.
Give him one more year.
Yeah, and to give him one more year. Because that job does make me nervous. However, if you're an Ole Miss fan, what you hope for, looking at Ole Miss's schedule, and it's a very favorable schedule outside of that one game which you wish you would have had it earlier in the year rather than later. You really hope that Ole Miss is in the playoff. If Ole Miss is in the playoff, Lane's not leaving. And Florida's Florida will not wait until after the playoff to hire a coach.
Yeah, I mean
that's Ole Miss's hope right now. You finish the season at 11th, and what would have been they would have been in the 12-team playoff had it been in 23.
Yeah.
So you're hoping to be in the top 12 or top 11 next year.
Because you should enter SEC play 4-0. You got Kentucky as your first game. That in South Carolina, that should be a couple of wins before you play LSU. And so you really theoretically should be 6-0 heading in the LSU game. And that's when it gets tough.
Still, they don't have a quarterback right now.
No, because Jaden Daniels he's gone. But that's where it gets tough. You got LSU, Oklahoma comes to Oxford. You go at Arkansas, home for Georgia, at Florida, home for Mississippi State. And so you have to be 6-0 heading to the LSU game. There is zero room for error, because that's the difference in like a 10-2 season, 9-3 season, or like a 6-6 season if you don't take care of business early.
Yeah. So for Ole Miss, this year they had an incredibly tough schedule, especially it's a miracle that they made it 10-2. I said on this podcast a couple weeks ago that every 50-50 ball this year went Ole Miss's way to get them to 10-2. There was a ball in the air against LSU. There was a kick in the air to go to overtime against Texas A&M. There was a ball in the air against Arkansas. It played out perfectly for Ole Miss in razor-thin margins.
Yep.
Next year, you lose Alabama and Auburn, and you pick up Kentucky, Florida,
South
you
Carolina
pick up
and Oklahoma.
Kentucky, South Carolina, and Oklahoma. You still got Georgia, and that's the
Yeah.
bear. You do get them at home this time. Does it matter? Probably not.
Right.
So you look at Ole Miss's schedule. I don't think there's a way they start off worse than 0-5.
5-0.
That gives you a win at home against Kentucky. You go to South Carolina. You should be 6-0. I said 0-5. I meant 5-0.
You did. I said 5-0.
Yeah,
I corrected you.
And then 6-0 going into LSU. I think you're going to beat Arkansas. I think you're going to beat Florida. I think you're going to beat State. So that's 9 wins.
Yeah.
Your toss-up games are going to be at LSU, Oklahoma at home, and Georgia at home. And so if you get to 9-3, I think you've got a shot at the playoff. But I think you're going to have to be 10-2.
Yeah.
And so you've got to go 1-2 in those 3 toss-up games.
Yeah.
And I think if you're in the playoff, I don't think there's any way that anybody can poach Lane because people forget recruiting National Signing Day is not in February anymore. It's still in February, it just doesn't matter. It's the second one. Mm-hmm. The first National Signing Day is just a few days before Christmas. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to resurrect a class of high school kids or hang on to a class of high school kids, you've got to have a coach like the Monday after Thanksgiving, just like Mississippi State did. You've got to have that coach in there. You got to think if Florida fired Billy Napier after this season, they've got a really good recruiting class. They were going to have to hire somebody by the Monday after Thanksgiving to try to hold on to that recruiting class.
Which is why Mississippi State, who we'll talk about next, moved so fast on Jeff Lebby. I think we could have poached a sitting head coach of a Power 5 school. But with the early signing period, we had to make a move. And Zach Selman felt familiar with Jeff Lebby. It's a good hire, but it's not a great hire. And I think he just felt like he had to pull the trigger because like you said, we're a week away from the the first signing day.
Outsider's opinion, though, I think that Lebby was Selman's guy from day one.
It was 100%. I think that I think we called Jamie Chadwell, and when he said no, Lebby was the next phone call. I don't think we wasted time with anybody else because Selman knew Lebby from the days in Oklahoma.
He could call Brett Venables immediately and just be like, "Do you approve?" And no head coach is going to
hold somebody back.
Take an OC from taking a head coach.
No, as a leader, you want to build people up. You want to lift their lid and launch them out of the nest. And so he's not going to hold him back. But yeah, I mean, I agree. But that's the reason you make that hire that quick is because of this new signing day. And as much as the transfer portal is playing into college football these days, and it's a big deal. You still got to win those high school recruiting battles for sure.
So speaking of transfer portal, since we're talking about Ole Miss's schedule, let me just hit this real quick, and then we'll go to Mississippi State. Ole Miss is absolutely dominating the transfer portal. It's kind of strange that it seems like Ole Miss is the preferred choice in a lot of these people. Walter Nolan, according to 24/7 Crystal Balls and On3 projections, is heavily favored to come to Ole Miss. I don't know where they're getting this money. I don't know what they're doing, but he is heavily considered to go to Ole Miss. But even if you don't get Walter Nolan, what Ole Miss has done is they've gotten the number 1 linebacker in the transfer portal in college, in the Arkansas linebacker Chris Paul Jr. Thankfully, he is not the son of the Chris Paul.
That's the only thing that
I would have to
hate Ole Miss worse is if this was actual Chris Paul.
The point guard Chris Paul's son. God. That would I don't know that I could have worn the same colors as Chris Paul's son. So. It's the only reason. It's the main reason why I want Ole Miss to just beat the ever living crap out of Wake Forest next year. Got Chris Paul Jr. out of Arkansas.
Big get, man. He's the number 1 linebacker in the class.
They got the number 1, and this isn't transfer portal guy. This is a JUCO guy. They got Deion Smith, the former LSU wide receiver, the number one JUCO player in the country. They locked him up. They got. Today, a commitment from the number 1 safety in the country in Key Lawrence, the Oklahoma transfer. They have sent out a lot of feelers on a lot of offensive linemen. They got an offensive lineman. He was a 4-star transfer. He was not obviously that highly rated out of high school, but he must have developed pretty well. But out of Southern Miss, I can't recall his name, but And then you still got Walter Nolan out there.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart is playing a little coy.
I saw that. I've been
He is
seeing
still
this.
saying he's evaluating his options. I can't see a scenario in which he doesn't come back. But there's something else I wanted to talk about later that could come into effect with Jackson Dart. But their most key additions outside of a potential Walter Nolan addition is not additions at all. It's retention. They got Caden Priestcorn, the second team All SEC tight end, to come back to school. They got
big.
Trey Harris to come back to school. They got Jordan Watkins to come back to school. That's two receivers that were extremely efficient, and Trey Harris is just absolute baller on the outside to come back to school. That's their wins right now. They got Jared Ivey, their best rush in, to come back to school. And these are not folks, I've said on this podcast before, is that veteran teams aren't necessarily good if you just have a bunch of seniors that stink. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, retention is not always great, but these guys had pro prospects, and they convinced them to come back to school, especially Caden Priestcorn, who is an able-bodied tight end that has pro prospects, kind of fits well because he can also block in a pro style.
Yeah.
He's a bigger body, and he's a father of almost two. And for them to pony up enough money to him to talk him out of what could be a 4th or 5th round draft pay to come back to Oxford for one more year is just an absolute home run.
Yeah. 100%. That's a big get, and then only makes Ole Miss better for next year, and a team that's going to be loaded already, and you're getting these cats back. But, that early schedule being very favorable.
There's 2 wild cards right now, and it's Jackson Dart, like we've talked about, which I think ultimately will come back.
He's doing it for more money. He's trying to get more NIL money.
My take. The other wild card that I'm not really sure where they stand on, I'm not a big recruit Nick or anything, is Quinshon Judkins.
Right.
One of the best running backs in the SEC. Led the SEC in rushing as a freshman. Did not have quite the yardage production as a sophomore, but was extremely productive late in the season. Dominated in the Egg Bowl. He's a stud. Yeah. You're curious to see what he's going to do. It's rumored that he's asking for 1.2, and Ole Miss it is believed that they offered $800K, and so can they meet in the middle? I don't really see the pros for Quinshon leaving, given that he is a draft eligible junior. You almost have to view him as an expiring contract,
right? If
you're another team, you know what I'm saying? Right. That's how we have to view these players these days. He is an expiring contract. He is going to be highly, highly drafted after next season. Do you pony up if you are a team that's putting him into a new system? Do you pony up $1.2 million for 1 year?
Yeah, I mean, for a Marvin Harrison Jr., where you're talking like neighborhood of like $20 million, like that's a guy that you do that for, which is just ridiculous.
If they pay him $20 million, they can't be real. He's not going. He's not going.
So a good friend of mine told me that he knows Bill Self from Kansas, and this is college basketball, but he said that they were having a drink one night, and he asked him straight up, like, these numbers are ridiculous. Are these kids getting $2 and $3 and $5 million to go play college football or college basketball? And Bill Self, Kansas head basketball coach, said no. He said you can take that number and cut it about half. He said half to 60% is kind of what they're getting. So if you're seeing, $1 million, they're probably getting between $400,000 and $600,000, which is still not chump change, but it's not the $1 million being advertised. But be interesting to see if Lane can keep this class together, because if so, Ole Miss will have another special team next year with a schedule that's favorable early, gets tough down the stretch. But can it happen?
Yeah, I could not be more excited about it. So, Rusty, I want you to tell me about Mississippi State, and then I want to touch on the transfer portal in relation to a new court case that was just had a temporary restraining order in regards to an aspect of the transfer portal. But first, let's get to Mississippi State, and then we'll talk about that.
Woof. Mississippi State's schedule next year is tough. We're going to get an IRA.
I haven't looked at it. I'll be honest with you. I haven't looked at it. I know that the teams are tough, but I have not seen the order.
It's not great. So we start off with 3 home games and a road game. We get Eastern Kentucky at home. Then we go to Tempe, Arizona, play at Arizona State. We're home for Toledo in Florida. Then, this is when it gets gnarly. In back-to-back weeks, or excuse me, we play a week and we have a bye week, and then we play at Texas, which I thought about going. That's close to a friend of the podcast, Sarah's birthday, and so we may not go to that. May have some other plans instead. But
special friend of the podcast.
Special friend of the podcast. At Texas, September 28th. Bye week at Georgia, October the 12th. Then A&M, Arkansas, and UMass at home before we play at Tennessee, home for Missouri, and at Ole Miss. Like, that is a brutal schedule, man, because like you said, the teams are tough, but you make us go back-to-back Texas and Georgia, even with a bye week in the middle. Like,
that's enough to break somebody.
Right, I mean, we might get beat 80-0 in those two games, and that's probably conservative. Like, they're going to.
I mean, if you look at this
of us
with the most rose-colored glasses of all time, you're a fan. We're going to picture this being the last weekend in August, and you are hot and heavy for Mississippi State football.
I'm going to be,
You're going to tell me they're 8-4 again. You're looking at this. You're like, Eastern Kentucky win, Arizona State win, Toledo win, Florida win. But even then, you're like, okay, that's 4-0
wins.
And then you're like, oh, we're going to Austin and going to Athens. Like, oh crap!
So that's 4-2. A&M, we beat A&M at home. That might be a win. Arkansas, maybe. UMass, no. Tennessee, no. Missouri, no. Ole Miss, probably not. Like, it just ends very poorly.
Last year, and there was extenuating circumstances that you refused to acknowledge with the Ole Miss 22 season, but you started out 7-1 and ended 8-4.
Yeah,
that's kind of what Mississippi State best case scenario is, because best case scenario says that you win. You win Florida at home, and you are 4-2.
Yeah.
Going into Texas A&M, Arkansas, best case scenario, that's a win. They've got another year of Sam Pittman in turmoil and no KJ Jefferson.
Hey, listen.
UMass is consistently a doormat of college football.
At that point, it may be Bobby Petrino.
Yeah. So you're looking at 5-3 or 5-4. Given an A&M loss and an Arkansas win and a UMass win, then you end the season Tennessee, Missouri, Ole Miss. It's like you're going to play those 3 games hoping to go bowling. You got to win one of them to start a new streak.
Look at the schedule. It's not pretty, man. It's going to be tough to do, but it is what it is. We got plenty of offseason to talk about it. Let's hit on that transfer portal real quick.
You've got to think, though, that Billy Napier, knowing in year 3 he is on the hottest of seats. Nobody in college football would trade places with Billy Napier right now.
No, none whatsoever. 0 people.
Yeah, so the transfer portal. So did you see this yesterday? It made rounds that in a court in West Virginia, there was a case that took the NCAA to court. And basically the crux of the case is you have allowed for players to you have deemed it rightful and true that these kids can make money on their name, image, and likeness. Mm-hmm. So if the courts say that you owe these kids money for their name, image, and likeness, then how in the world can you deny waivers for players who have transferred? Because the courts have decided that these kids are owed their money, but you are denying kids opportunity to make money because they choose to transfer for a second time.
Yeah. And
so the court ruling was for 14 days that it granted a TRO, a temporary restraining order on the NCAA for withholding or denying waivers. People that, and this is hitting home for college basketball. That's what season we're in right now. Mm-hmm. For people who are sitting out because they cannot get cleared, cannot get an NCAA waiver because they have transferred in most cases for the second time or for the third time.
Yeah.
And so effective immediately yesterday, any player who has not received an NCAA waiver to play or has been denied an NCAA waiver to play in the current college basketball season or any season that's happening right now is immediately eligible.
Wow.
And That is massive. It's massive on a micro scale for current teams. Ole Miss right now has a Georgetown transfer who transferred from Tennessee and has played 3 years at Georgetown and is now transferred to Ole Miss. His name is Brandon Murray. He is an absolute electric factory. Jumps out of the gym. He would come in right now and be the best player on an undefeated Ole Miss basketball team. An Ole Miss
100%.
basketball team that has won against Memphis, has won on the road against a scrappy team in Temple, who is ranked for the first time since I don't know when, Ole Miss team. He would be immediately the best player on Ole Miss's team. They
100%.
have immediately granted eligibility for 14 days. That's how long the TRO is good for until they address this in court again on the 27th of December.
Yeah, and so I agree. Like this is a great opportunity for these kids to step in and make immediate impact. There's no repercussions for coaches leaving. I don't understand why there's such a heavy burden on kids that are making transfers. But I mean, the transfer portal is an ever evolving situation, and so there's a lot of things that are going to be coming out of this. I think this court case is the beginning of a lot of court cases that are going to influence the way college athletics work in the future.
So my thoughts on this. Short term, the NCAA has came out and said, the NCAA has come out and said, if you challenge this, if you play your players that have not gotten a waiver, then if we win the court case on the 27th, they would be deemed ineligible for the season period. You have played a player that's ineligible. The other side of that is the NCAA has never won a court case ever.
Yeah, ever.
Yeah. And so big picture, let's talk big picture just for a brief second. If this becomes the lay of the land, the law of the world is that the NCAA cannot keep a player from making money by not granting a waiver when he transfers. There will be an absolute open market that is not even seen by professional sports. A free agency that is complete and totally unhinged. And let me lay out a situation in which it would be uncontrollable. If you cannot play, if you get a waiver, if you were eligible to play, no matter how many times you transferred, Ole Miss goes and plays Bryant at home that Christmas Eve. If a player from Bryant scores 27 points on them and they're like, he is way undervalued, he should be on a better team, come play for us, transfer, you're immediately eligible, period, because we can't tell you're not eligible. 2 weeks later, he could be playing for Ole Miss. I told you I'd bring up Jackson Dart in a minute. This is where I'm going to bring him up. If Jackson Dart, who has transferred one time from USC to Ole Miss, he would have to get a waiver for the second time to transfer. We'll say this holds up. Jackson Dart can immediately put in the transfer portal and not have any
repercussions,
any chance of a waiver being denied.
Right.
And he could use it at the very minimum as a bargaining chip, as a trade piece, as a way to drive a negotiating tactic, because it's not contingent on anything. He will be cleared. Yeah. Like it is. You think the transfer portal is the Wild West now? Wait till you don't have to worry about waivers.
Right. Yeah, it's going to get even worse. And speaking of that, man, like we've had some wild happenings over the last week in terms of contract negotiation. We've had Marvin Harrison, while we're on the transfer portal, possibly making enough money to stay in college another year and forego his rookie season another year, $20 million. We've got Quinshon Judkins possibly calling for $1.2 million on the open market. But none of that compares to Shohei Ohtani money.
Oh, no. Shohei Ohtani money is a different
$700 million, but he pulled a Bobby Bonilla and deferred $68 million a year till he's done with the contract. My boy's getting paid $2 million a year, and they're going to get paid $68 million a year after 10 years.
No, so for 10 years, he's going to be making $2 million a year, and for 10 years after that, he'll make $68 million a year. Why not? And the thing that is so first off, the highest contract that was ever signed in professional baseball was Mike Trout's 400 and say 50. I can't remember the numbers. You're telling me that he got $250 million more than the next highest paid contract in Major League Baseball history is absolutely funny money. I don't understand how that's even possible.
That's the wildest thing to me, man. And like he's on it. So between Ohtani and Mookie Betts' deal, it's $1.07 billion. The Florida Marlins are worth $1 billion as a franchise. Yeah. Those two players are making more money than the entire Marlins franchise.
And let me tell you something right now. Shohei Ohtani is the smartest man in the world, because 100%. That $700 million contract over 10 years, he was only going to net like 45% of that after California state income tax, the representation, your attorney fees and all that. That's going to be a set percentage anyways. But after all of that, $35 million, he's not going to pay that on $2 million for 10 years. But then state or federal law, I believe it's federal law, that if you move out of state for a period of, I think, 8, and you're owed that much money over a period of so many years, and you say he moves to Texas,
no income tax.
He will not have to pay income tax on that 68 times $680 million.
Brilliant.
So he could go, when this contract is done, go play for the Texas Rangers for nothing and make the full amount minus attorney fees or agent fees and representation fees, make the whole amount.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
Genius, man.
Brilliant. He's playing chess, not checkers right here. 100%.
And let's be real, even in Los Angeles, California, $2 million a year is money. So anyways, well, we have touched on an assortment of topics tonight. I mean, we spent a lot of the podcast. We're kind of in a dead season here, and we have spent a lot of this podcast talking about personal stuff, and it's about time for us to wrap up. So I appreciate everybody here for just sticking with us. I hope you enjoyed our talks about life and just about what's going on here. We are sports fans, but first and foremost, Rusty and I, we are friends, and we love to hear about each other's lives and what's going on. And with Rusty's move and with Christmas and everything going on, we just love to talk about our lives on this podcast as well. And when we get the opportunity in a dead season like this, it is nice just to use this podcast as a way to keep everybody else abreast of what's going on in our lives and what we find funny and what we can honestly just use a sounding board for. Just put this out for people to be in our corner. And so I just want to thank everybody for bearing with us through the first part of the podcast. I hope and I think that everybody will find it humorous, just hearing about our lives. But then we did get into some sports, and there were a few big topics, but there wasn't just a lot to get into. So I appreciate everybody for sticking with us throughout our drawings about our families. And that is the fact that if anybody makes it an hour through this podcast and enjoyed their time while listening to two buffoons from Mississippi talk about just what's going on in their lives, I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, we love our audience. We love our fans. We love people who spend an hour with us every week. Even if you don't know what we're talking about, you just listen to us. And if you made it to this point, like either A, you have nothing else to do, or B, we really, really appreciate y'all.
Yeah. So, Rusty, it's been a busy week. I know you're tired. I know that you've got some unpacking to do, and I know you're getting ready for day 5 at a new job. So we're going to wrap this podcast right here. Let you get to work here and let me put these kids to bed. So until next week, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube at the 2 Buck Sports Podcast. Rusty, we will continue to correspond with everybody that wants to participate on Instagram at the number 2 Buck Sports Podcast. But until next Thursday night, play our music.
Let's go. Thank you, buddy. Enjoyed it. See y'all next week.